It's another beautiful tutorial today, and you're welcome back to my channel, Soulmate. So in today's tutorial, this is what we are going to be making: this drawstring dress with Basque waistline. Okay, so that is what we are going to be learning how to make today. So I urge you to stay tuned to the end of this tutorial so that you'll be able to learn how to make this beautiful dress. Okay, so as you can see, I have my paper on my table here. Okay, and I'm just going to grab my masking tape and I'm going to tape this paper down. Okay, I'm going to tape it down in place, and I will be explaining to you all the lines that you see marked out here. So the first thing I did was to set aside 1 inch on this upper part. Okay, before the shoulder line I set aside 1 inch. Then I measured my chest line, that is from my shoulder to my chest line, from my shoulder to my under bust line, then from my shoulder to my waistline. So I used 2.5 inches from my chest line to my under bust line, and I measured 13 inches from my shoulder to my chest line, and I also set aside extra 4 inches from my waistline. Okay, and I label it as Basque waistline. So I label allowance for the up shoulder, chest line, under bust, waist, and Basque waistline. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do now is to impute my shoulder measurement divided by 2. Okay, so I'll mark for my shoulder measurement divided by 2 here, and the next thing I'm going to do is to mark my sleeve length. Okay, so I'm going to measure my sleeve length, which is 7 inches, and I'm just going to mark it as well. So I'll measure what I have here, and whatever I have, I am going to impute it down to the chest line as well. Okay, so I proceeded to mark it down exactly on the chest line, and I'm going to get my ruler to connect it into a straight line. But before then, I'll slope my shoulder by 0.5 inches. Then my neck width is what I'm going to measure and mark here, and I will just get my ruler and I'm going to slope it down here, okay, to get a shoulder slope. Okay, so I was not doing that, and I'm just going to measure my sleeve opening here. Okay, so I'm going to mark my sleeve opening here, and I'm going to add some allowances to it. Okay, so I proceeded to mark my sleeve opening, and I also added extra allowance. Okay, that is what I measured and mark here. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark what I have here, okay, to get a straight line. Okay, remember I had earlier measured it. Okay, so I'm just going to pick my ruler and I'll connect into a straight line down to the under bust line. Okay, so I was done doing that, and the next thing I'm going to do right now is to mark my under bust circumference divided by 4. Okay, so I'm going to mark it, and I'll also be adding some allowances to it. Okay, so I'll measure my under bust divided by 4 and mark. Okay, so I'll be adding extra 6.5 inches allowance to it. Okay, so you can use 6.5 inches or 6 inches depending on how much fabric you have. Okay, so I proceeded to add about 6.5 inches to it, and that is what I marked here. The next thing I'm going to do is to measure my waist circumference divided by 4. Okay, so I will measure my waist circumference divided by 4 and mark here, and I'm going to be adding just the normal allowance of 2 inches. Okay, notice that the under bust added about 6.5 inches, but here is just the normal allowance of 2 inches. Okay, so from there I'm going to connect to the Basque waistline here with my free hand like this. Okay, so this is the Basque waistline that I just marked here, as you can see, and connected to that allowance line. So the next thing I'm going to do is to take it up straight. Okay, so I'll get my ruler and I'm just going to connect it up straight. Okay, so but before I do that, I want to cross check my work and mark exactly here this straight line to have a straight line. Okay, so I just decided to connect it with my free hand. So I want to remove the allowance I added for my sleeve opening around here. Okay, and I'm going to curve it down to the under bust. So I'm going to be marking 0.5 inches. Okay, so I marked and I'm just going to connect it down to the under bust. Okay, because I did it on the second thought, I didn't want the sleeve opening to be too wide. Okay, so I also cross check my under bust circumference divided by 4 and ensure that I have just 2 inches allowance there, because I don't want the allowance to be excess. I don't want it to be too much. Okay, so I proceeded to mark, and I reconnected. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do right now is to mark the neck depth that I'm working with. So remember, we are cutting the front part, so I want the neck depth to be 5 inches. Okay, if you like, you can make it as long as under bust line or waistline. Okay, so you see the way I place my ruler, that is how I want the shape of the neckline to be. I don't want it to be normal v-neck. Okay, so I gave it a little shape of a curved v-neck. Okay, and this is what we have. Okay, so I'm going to be adding allowance on this bust waistline. Okay, so if you like, you can add this allowance on your paper. If you like, you can add it on your main fabric. Okay, after cutting out. So I just decided to add it on my paper, and I'm going to be adding 0.5 inches allowance all round, and I'm just going to connect it this way. Okay, so it's not out of place if you add it on your paper here or on your main fabric. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark about 0.75 from this 1 inch that I set aside. So if you like, you can actually use the whole 1 inch. Okay, so but mine, I want to add mark 0.75. Okay, so I am marking this starting from the shoulder slope line upwards. Okay, so I proceeded to connect as well. Okay, by so doing, it will not affect the look of the shoulder. It will still have that look when you slant your shoulder, as in when you slope your shoulder. Okay, so this is what I have now, and the next thing I'm going to do is to cut it out. And after cutting it out, it will be time to cut on my main fabric and cut the back part. Okay, so I was not cutting, and this is what we have. Okay, so like I said, I'll cut on my main fabric and I'm going to bring it back. So I want to indicate that this place is the upper part and indicate that this side is the down part. So I use my arrow and also write up and down, and I also proceeded to cut it on my main fabric, and this is what I have. So this front here, I proceeded to add allowance for joining. Okay, so if you like, you can cut it on fold, especially if the down part did not reach, and I added 0.5 inches here. So this is the down part. I added 0.5 inches, and I also cut on fold and cut out my lining piece. So if you have your hard interfacing, you're going to gum it on this Basque waistline part, this part here. Okay, but I won't be gumming because I don't have it available right now. Okay, so please, if you have, go ahead and gum it on that Basque waistline part. So I'm going to unpin, and it will be time for us to cut out the back part. Okay, so I'll unpin and set aside my fabric for the front and cut out the back part. Okay, so remember to cut here on fold, please, for the front part. Okay, so this is the paper for the back part, and we won't be needing basque waist for the back part. So I'm removing this basque waist from here. Okay, remember, it's from here I added 4 inches for the basque, so I removed it, and these are just what we need for the back. So I'm going to place this on my main fabric, and I'll cut that, and I'll bring it back for us to see what we have. Okay, so I'll go ahead and cut and add my lining accordingly. So I proceeded to cut. So what I did was that I came down 1 inch here. Okay, and measured my neckline, and I connected. So I used 2 inches 1 inch neck depth for the back, and I set aside 1.5 inches for zipper allowance for the back. I used normal round neck for the back, added 0.5 inches allowance in these two places, and also the down, and I notched this upper part to remind me that it's the upper part. Added zip allowance as well here, and 0.5 inches here for allowance as well. Okay, so I cut out my lining piece for this upper part. I'll cut for this small part as well. So the next thing I'm going to do is to unpin my papers, and I'm going to show you how we're going to join this upper part I've cut lining piece for. So I'm going to turn the neckline with lining, and turn the sleeve opening here with lining, and also the shoulder line with lining. And that is what I'm going to do, and bring it back for us to see. So this is my front. I went on to turn that same point, the neckline, the shoulder line, and the sleeve opening with my lining piece. Okay, so this is also the back. I went on to turn the neckline, the zipper allowance, the shoulder line. I went on to turn all these points except this down part. Okay, so this down part I'm just going to use a stitch to hold the lining and the fabric down. So now this is my front. Okay, and I'm going to make a gather stitch around here. Okay, and after that it will be time to join the shoulder of the back with the shoulder of the front, and I'm going to bring it back for us to see after joining. So I'll go ahead and join with that allowance I added. Okay, so I'll place it right side facing right side, and I'll do that and bring it back for us to see what it looks like. Okay, so next I'm going to close my zipper allowance with loose stitch. Okay, so I was not making my gather stitch here, as you can see, and I'm just going to gather it to be exactly the same length with this down part. Okay, I'm going to gather is to give me this same length. Okay, so I added I sewed that around this down part. Okay, it's just what I desire to do. It's not as if it's a must. Okay, so what I'm going to do is to divide this back part and fold it into two and notch the midpoint. Okay, so also remember that I've turned the side of this small part with lining, just the side. That's what I turn. Then I just stitch the main fabric with the lining on the down part and the upper part. So I'm also going to gather this part to it, and after that I will join. Okay, so I also gathered the back, as you can see. So that back is also important. Okay, so I gathered it, and I'm also going to join the small part. Okay, so I went on to do, and I added belt to it. It's just what I want. Okay, so I proceeded to join the down part, and I saw this rope already is 4 pieces, and we are going to be attaching this rope on this upper part. Okay, so I'll turn it to the wrong side, and I'm going to show you what we are going to do to attach this rope to it. Okay, so this is the wrong part. Okay, and remember I turned this shoulder line with lining piece, remember that. Okay, so I'm going to open it up this way, and I'm going to fix my rope inside like this, then close it, then secure the rope. Okay, then sew the allowance down. Okay, I'm just going to sew on the main fabric down. So as I sew, I will ensure that the stitch is not sewing on top of the rope, so that I can be able to draw it to form my drawstring. So I'll do that on the second part, and I'll show you what we have. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to also get the fabric that I'm going to use to cut out the down part. So I proceeded to sew the drawstring on the shoulder. Okay, as you can see, and this is what we have. So please, just after you have secured the rope on the shoulder, okay, close the neckline, then make sure that the rest of the sewing is not sewing on the rope. So I'm going to measure what I have here round, and whatever I have, I'm going to multiply it by 3 or 2.5, depending on the amount of fabric you have. Okay, so I'll check what my fabric can give me, and I'll multiply it by 3 or 2.5 inches. So I went on to do that, and I cut out this fabric you can see here. So it's actually about 2.5 inches times 2.5 inches of what I have on that Basque waistline. Okay, so what I did there was that I folded it into two. Okay, to get the midpoint, and that is this folded part. Okay, so remember that we added 4 inches to form this Basque waistline from the normal waist. Okay, so I'm going to come down by 3 inches or 3.5. Okay, to measure down to form that to align with that Basque waistline that we have there. Okay, so I'll proceed to measure and mark. So I measured and marked on 3.5 inches, and I connected so that I can use the remaining 0.5 inches to join. Okay, So I connected this way and I'm just going to cut it out. So this makes it possible that when I finish sewing, the dress is going to be equal on the hem. That is the flap part, the skirt part to be equal. So but if you don't do this, it's not going to be equal. The front part will be longer than the sides. Okay, so I proceeded to make a gather stitch on the skirt part. Okay, and I'm going to open the zipper allowance, and I've also I'll also fold and notch the midpoint of the front. Okay, I'm going to notch the midpoint of the front, or I'll mark on it so that I can be able to align it with the midpoint of the skirt part. Okay, so I proceeded to mark on it, as you can see here. And the next thing I'm going to do is to mark on the midpoint of the skirt part as well, and I'll place it right side facing right side. I'll go ahead and join and bring it back. So I was done joining, and this is what we have. Okay, you can see how beautiful it's looking. This dress is not hard to make at all. It's not difficult. I also added my lining piece to it, and this is the beautiful look of our dress. And attach my zipper. Okay, so these were just the things I did behind the camera. Okay, to attach my lining piece and my zipper. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate. I want you to please return some other time when I'll drop another tutorial. And if you are yet to subscribe, go ahead and hit on the subscribe button so you'll be among of those who get notified when I post another one.